visit the emperor's capital, and they're posing as professional weavers. They offer to supply him with magnificent clothes that are invisible to those who have no eye for it, that are either incompetent or stupid. And so the gullible emperor hires them. And they set up their looms, and they pretend to get to work, and they're doing all this work, and they say they need the privacy. And people, officials, not the emperor, keeps checking on them and say, you're not doing anything. But they don't say anything. They don't say anything. And starting with the emperor's wise and competent ministers, and they end with the emperor himself, they all get duped by these con men when they check on the progress. Each sees that the clothes are empty, but pretend otherwise to avoid being called stupid, or that they don't have the appeal, that they don't have the look. So finally, these weavers come to the emperor, and they say, it's all done. It's all done. It's finished. And so they bring the emperor into his room. He takes off his old fancy clothes, and they pretend to put on new ones, because he can't see them, but he has to pretend he does. And so he wants to show off his new clothes. So he took them all off, right? He's naked. He's put on these invisible ones that are only able to be seen by those that have a keen eye for sense. And so he goes out and has a procession, a parade before the village, the townfolk. And immediately the townfolk are uncomfortable, going along with the pretense, but not wanting to embarrass the emperor because, well, he's powerful. Until the child blurts out, the emperor has no clothes. He's naked. The emperor awkwardly continues with the procession, unwilling to admit that he has been duped. We are starting the book of Esther, and we're going to see that this king has power, immense power, more than this emperor that has no clothes. And each time, he's not very wise. He listens to others at the expense of his own thought and growth. And what we're going to see in the book of Esther is that the emperor has no clothes. He has great power, and oftentimes in our world, the world seemingly has more power and privilege than us as believers in Jesus Christ. We are weak in this world, and yet he's foolish. He has no clothes on. He's not dressed. He thinks he is fancy when in reality he is not. So we're going to start the book of Esther today. This is a book recommended by one of our members that we wanted to preach. And remember, we're kind of doing a series of different topics or books that I asked if you wanted to do. So Esther is one of them. We're going to be in here for a few weeks here. But Esther is a unique book because we're following the people of Israel throughout the Old Testament, the Israelites, and they're a big promise early in the Bible to Abraham is that I will give you a land. I will give you an area to live and dwell in. Israel. And this is one of two books in the Old Testament that is entirely set outside of the Promised Land. Daniel was the other one. But unlike Daniel has, remember, at one point he's praying and he's directing his prayers towards Israel. He's concerned about Israel and getting back. Here, Esther has no concerns or worries about the Promised Land. And what makes Esther unique is that it is the only book in the Bible which clearly and definitively does not mention the name of God. Song of Songs, Song of Solomon, could be that, depending on how you want to look in the Hebrew text of how you want to translate a verse. But there is no mention of the name God anywhere throughout here. And so churches have struggled throughout history of whether or not it's a good idea to even include Esther into the Bible. But we're going to see for us today that this book is relevant and true for us because we need to live out our faith in a world where we often cannot name God directly. We can more so than other parts of the world, but we do not live in the world and the power of today. Something? Yes.
Office is dead.
Oh, hey, the code is 1013.
We already tried that. It's not opening. Yeah, it beeps like three adults.
It's not working? Sure, go for it.
We've all tried.
We've all tried? Try locking it again and then unlocking it again. It's the beauty of me forgetting to unlock it earlier. That's all right. All right, so we're in Esther. Hey, watch this. Ready? We're going to connect this. They're trapped out of the office. They're trapped out of the junior high area, just like Esther's trapped out of the promised land. Okay. Is that a good one? No, probably not. Who knows? Maybe we'll have 15, 20 junior higher kids come back in here. I'm not sure what the plan is right now. Looks like they're staying out there. So we'll continue on. Okay? So we are in Esther. If you're there, it is on page 410 of the Church Bible. It's in the Old Testament here. And we're going to see in chapter 1, we're going to cover chapters 1 and 2 today, is that the first chapter is all about the power of the kingdom of Persia. Or we can say we get to see the power of the world. And in chapter 2, we're going to see the weakness of the people of God. The weakness of the people of God. And so there's some hard names. I felt pretty good about the idea of this. Christy made it happen, of the logo. And so there's different names here. I'm going to start off with the first one. It says this. Chapter 1, verse 1. Now in the days of Ahasuerus, the Assyrians who reigned from India to Ethiopia over 127 provinces. So right at the get-go, maybe you're reading from the NIV or a different translation, and you don't have the name. I really struggle with this one. Ahasuerus, okay? So Ahasuerus and Xerxes is the same person. It's just depending on how you want to use the name. So Xerxes is kind of the Greek name for this, and Ahasuerus is the Hebrew word. So they're the same person. Depending on how you're reading your Bible, they are the same person. It says that he is the king of Persia. I'm going to use the name Xerxes because it's way easier for me to say, okay? So he reigns over from India to Ethiopia, over 127 provinces. This king is famous for waging a deadly, costly war that he loses, which doesn't happen often for the Persian kingdom, to the Greeks. And so when it says that he reigned from India to Ethiopia, over 127 provinces, it's saying at that time he is ruling over the entire Middle East and into Africa, in modern-day Africa. Basically, what is the known world at the time, he rules and reigns over. So what we see first here, this first verse, is that the kingdom of Persia, the kingdom of this world, seemingly is inescapable. It's everywhere. It controls everything and everyone that is around him. The land of Israel, that this doesn't take place in, is ruled by the Persians. If they try and leave Persian control, there's nowhere else really to go. They could go to the Greeks, but the Greeks aren't going to accept them because they're from enemy territory. So the power of this world, don't we feel this? We get online and we just see the power of this world is everywhere, that we can't seemingly escape it. We go to work and there's powers that are above us. We go home and seemingly those powers in the world are infiltrating our homes. The empire of the world is seemingly inescapable, but it's also visibly impressive. Verse 2, in those days when King Xerxes sat on his royal throne in Susa, the citadel, the capital of Persia, in the 3rd year of his reign, he gave a feast for all of his officials and servants. The army of Persia and Media and the nobles and governors of the provinces were before him. So he has this big party, invites the whole nation of powerful people. And while he showed the riches of his royal glory in the splendor and pomp of his greatness for many days, how many days? 180 days. He has this big festival where all the important people in the world of his kingdom come and celebrate. And when these days were completed, after 180 days, the king sent them all home, and he gave for all the people present in Susa, the citadel, both great and small, a feast lasting for 7 days in the court of the garden of the king's palace. There were white cotton curtains and violets hangings fastened with cords of fine linen, and purple to silver rods and marble pillars, and also couches of gold and silver on a mosaic pavement of marble and mother of pearl and preciousness. Drinks were served in golden vessels of different kinds, and royal wine was lavish according to the bounty. And he makes a law, an edict that says there is no compulsion. Meaning, man, we have all this splendor, we have all this drink. I'm making a law, making a rule, drink as much as you want. For the king had given orders to all the staff to his palace to do as each man desired. You think you're drinking too much? Have another cup. You think you're eating too much? Have another plate. Or you think you're having too much fun? Well, keep on going on. And while this was happening, the queen Vashti also gave a feast for the women in the palace that belonged to King Xerxes. Well, we see, man, this is, if you want to show you have power, right, you have a party. And you bring them in, you show them all your fine stuff, your best stuff. You want to see, hey, bring people from other countries and say, look at the royalty, look at my gold, look at my possessions. The kingdom of this world is visibly impressive. 180-day party. Can you imagine that? I think we stress out having like 2 families over at our house once a month for home groups, right? It's like, oh, we got to get the house clean. Or at least tidied up just enough so that they come over, they can have a place to sit. And we stress out about that. And that's for maybe 2, 3, 4 hours maybe. You're having people, the most powerful people in the world, to come look at you for 180 days. Half a year. How much wealth is there? It's almost like he's flexing his muscles and saying, hey, if you ever think about leaving me or betraying me, remember how much power I have. And if you want some of this, follow me, and I will give it to you. You'll be a part of this. You get to have your desires full. And even after this 100 days, he says to the people that worked it, hey, let me give you 7 days, 7-day party. It's going to be a little tempered down, but still, 7 days. Can you imagine that? Not only is the empire of this world inescapable, it's visibly impressive, and it's ultimately desperately desirable. Man, look at all the joy they get to have. They get to have all of this power, power, power. They do this to show others, if you want to throw your lot in with me, then you could have all of this too. And as the 7 days are wrapping up, I'm going to kind of summarize here. But he's in the party with all the guys. They've had their fill of food, of wine, and what else does he want? Women, of course. So there's probably a little bit of locker room talk. And he's, before his people, the powerful people, he says, hey, go get Queen Vashti, for man, she's the most beautiful in the kingdom. Let's bring her in here so we can just look at her. And when you look at her, you can see the crown of glory that is mine. This powerful man brings her in, or tells the eunuchs to go get her. Basically, he wants to show, hey, you think you have a good-looking wife? You think you've done this? Let me come check out my smoking hot wife. This is the kind of locker room talk he has. And the powerful, funny, ironic thing is, what happens? She refuses. She says no. She doesn't want to come. Now, here's what we don't want to do in the book of Esther. We don't want to speculate on why people did things if it's not already permitted there, right? We're not told why this queen refused to come before the king. We're not told if it's because she has a moral compass and she doesn't want to be beautified or she doesn't want to be gawked at by these drunk men. We're not told anything besides the fact that she refused. Maybe a helpful Bible reading tip for us is oftentimes, let's not speculate. There's a whole style of preaching that does this, that says, I wonder what they were thinking. And it's kind of fun and creative to wonder and to dig in that. And there's times to speculate, right? But for Esther is not one of those, of wondering why she is. One place I always want to know, speculate on, is when Peter, or Jesus calls Peter to walk on the water. In my mind, I'm like, I speculate, how far was he? Right? I don't think that's wrong, right? But to assign motive here, we don't want to do that. I do want to know how far was he. Was he really close? Was he Chelsea and I distance? Or was he Jake and I back there. Or like even farther, right? But that doesn't matter for us today. If God wanted us to know all the details, he would have put it in there. So she refused. And the king is embarrassed. He has no clothes, right? He has all this power, and yet his own queen, who is supposed to just be really the crown of glory for him, to make him look good, to be beautiful and not talk, refuses. So he is with his wise men, and he asks them, what should I do? What should I do? And they're like, well, dude, if the queen doesn't respect the king, what about my wife? What about all the other wives? And so they make a law. They punish the queen. They make a law, and in the Persian world, if they made a law, it was absolute. There was no taking the law away. And the law, basically in two parts, said, the queen will never see the king again. And that for every husband in the kingdom of Persia is to basically domineer, be over his wife in kind of a powerful negative way. So we see this king has no clothes on because he demands people to do things, but he's unable to change their desires. He wants the queen to come to him, but she can't, or she doesn't. He could chain her up and bring her by force, and he can manipulate people to do things, but he can't change hearts. Right? There's a lot in our world that can pressure and push us to cave and to come before the king and to submit before the teachings of this world, but none of them can change our hearts. Only God can. So look at all of this power, and yet this queen refuses. And it's funny, it's ironic, because the queen gets exactly what she wanted. She is forbidden to be in the king's presence, the very thing she refused to do. And how much of our world's problems do we see in a government? They say, something is not right, let's make a law so everyone has to do it. And in the end, that law actually hurts us. They have power, and yet it seemingly falls apart. So here by the end of chapter 1, we have learned that while the empire of the world is inescapable, visibly impressive, and desperately desirable, it just might not be as invincible as it would have had us believe. It's a dangerous place, but also an absurd place. The people of God have to live here, for there is nowhere else to go. They will be dazzled by the surface glitz, a kind of Trump tower on steroids. They may be seduced into worshiping the empire, but it may be in terms of an old fairy tale where the emperor really has no clothes on. See, the king that seemingly has infinite power is powerless to his wife. The king commands every man to be master of his household, the very thing he was unable to do. We look at this world, and if you want to appear powerful, then you need to look rich. If you want to appear good looking, then you are the one with the power. And yet here in chapter 2, we're going to see, and the entire Bible shows us that there is strength in weakness. We live in weakness. So what happens is that the queen is no longer allowed to see the king, and the king gets a little lonely at night. Picking up where I'm going with this? And so he's like, well, what should I do, wise men? Tell me what to do. And so they say, let's have a beauty contest. Let's get, we have 127 provinces. Let's get 127 women, the best looking women from there, bring them in and have a beauty contest. And whichever one pleases you the most, that one can be your queen, and she can please you. But this isn't really like a beauty pageant where they walk around in a bikini and say that they want world peace. This is more of a sex contest. It's closer to a job interview that you get in because the young woman is beautiful. And then when you get into the interview, they close the blinds, and you either put out or get out. And you got to be good at it, because if you're not good at it, they're not going to hire you. But if you are, then you get the job. And so we hear of this one young woman named Esther who has an uncle named Mordecai, And she is beautiful. Over and over again, she says that she is beautiful to look at. The young woman had a beautiful figure and was lovely to look at, it says in verse 7. And when her father and mother died, Mordecai took her as his own daughter. And it said that she was taken from that province and brought to the king. It's almost like the get out of jail free card, in a sense, right? You were living in poverty, you get the chance to be the queen. You might win the lottery. And just like the lottery, it tells you all these false lies. Just like the lottery that says you might win big, when in reality, 99.9% of people lose big. These women, 127, were brought before the king, had no power, had no control, and once they had their one night with the king, if he wasn't pleased with them, they were taken away to never see another male again. They weren't allowed to go back to their province. They weren't allowed to go back to their hometown because they've already been defiled. Now, defiled by the king. So, notice again, the power of this empire takes the best of the best and says, men that are there, sorry, you get second grade, second tier. And we're just going to use all of these women for the pleasure of the king. Esther does not have much going for her besides the fact that she's beautiful. She lost her parents. She's a Jew. She only has an uncle, but she is good looking. And by favor, if you look at chapter 2, verse 15, it says at the very end, now Esther was winning favor in the eyes of all who saw her. Her day comes to be with the king to win this sex contest. She was beautiful and she wins. She becomes the queen. And while there, Mordecai is there with her, trying to guide and protect her all the way. And it says in verse 17 that the king loved Esther more than all the women, and she won grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of the Queen Vashti. So there's a little bit of hope right there, right? That the king actually loves her, but this word for loved is the same word used in 2 Samuel 13,